welcome to Adulting, a show where we teach you how to prepare for real-life situations, money management, and career advice. I'm your host, Nadia Adams. Today we will have two Aurora University students on the show with us, Kelly and Hallie. They will be participating in a mock interview designed to demonstrate the do's and don'ts of interview etiquette. Be sure to get your notebook out and take notes as you prepare for your future interview. Hallie and Kelly, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Hallie?
Well, my name is Hallie. I'm 22 years old, and I really like dogs. I don't really like school too much or really working, but I do like dogs and taking naps. So that's the most important information.
And Kelly, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'm currently going to be graduating this May from Aurora University with a communication major. I'm also a part of the honor society called Lambda Phi Eta here, and I will be graduating with honors this May, so it's exciting.
So what you want to do when asked a question to share about yourself in an interview is give a pitch, one that is concise and compelling to show why you are the right fit for the job. Start off with 2 to 3 specific accomplishments or experiences that you want the interviewer to know about you. Then wrap up connecting your experiences to the specific job role that you are applying for. So, Hallie, how did you hear about this position?
So I was doing a Google search trying to find a job because I realized, I'm graduating. I should probably get a job now. So I was just Googling, and I Googled jobs near me, and this one was like the first or second one to pop up. So I was like, that's probably a good one. I clicked.
Kelly, how did you hear about this position?
I've actually been working for a few months with my career services through school, and when this job came across, I Googled more about your company and learned that I really like what you guys do here, so I decided to come in and contact you.
When an interviewer asks you how you heard about the position, start with one line that shows you understand the company's goals using a couple keywords and phrases from the website. You'll want to be personable as well by saying something like, I'm personally drawn to this mission because, or I really believe in this approach because. You'll want to share a personal example or two. Hallie, what are your strengths?
Well, my greatest strengths, I would say, are taking naps, as I mentioned before, also snuggling with my dog, and then also just being cool,
Kelly, what are some of the strengths that you have?
I would say some of my strengths are definitely people skills, communication, public speaking, anything in that realm. So with personally connecting with people, I've worked in retail and food service industry for about 10 years now, and I would say I have a lot of experience of customer service and getting to know what the client needs.
When asked what your strengths are, be accurate and honest. Do not share common strengths that the interviewer is expecting to hear, but be creative. You will want to be sure you choose strengths that are relevant to the position that you are applying for. Also, be sure to be specific. For example, instead of saying, one of my strengths is people skills, you can say persuasive communication or relationship building. As always, be sure to follow up with an example of how you've demonstrated these traits in a professional setting. Hallie, can you tell me what some of your weaknesses are?
Well, one of my weaknesses would definitely be showing up to work on time or at all, and then also school. So I failed all my classes, and I'm learning from that because I'm taking all my classes over again.
Okay. Kelly, what are your weaknesses?
I would say one of my biggest weaknesses is family. So as much as I'd like to balance everything and juggle everything, I do work a lot and I work very hard, but sometimes an emergency might come up.
When an interviewer asks you to share your weaknesses, you want to find a balance of something you are not the best at, but you are working to improve in that area. For example, maybe you have never been a strong public speaker, but you have recently volunteered to run meetings to challenge yourself to become more comfortable addressing groups of people This would be a great way to showcase your weaknesses and how you are always willing to improve yourself. Hallie, why do you want this job?
Well, I want this job because everyone's telling me that I need to get a job after I graduate, so I'm just looking for a job to basically please my parents and my professors, and also because I need to make money to pay off my loans.
Kelly, why do you want this position?
Well, after looking more at your company, I realized that I truly believe in what your company stands for. I really want to get in and hit the ground running. There's a lot more that I know I can learn going from hands-on experience, and I believe this is the perfect fit for me.
When asked why you want the position you are applying for, first identify a couple of key factors that make the role a great fit for you. For example, you can say, I love customer service because I enjoy connecting with others and helping others solve problems. Then you can go on continuing by sharing what you would enjoy working for the company. Hallie, can you give me a reason why we should hire you?
Well, I think you should hire me because I'm just a really fun individual. I'm cool and I'm fun to hang out with.
Kelly, why should we hire you for this position?
Well, I can give you a few reasons why you should hire me. Not only am I hardworking, determined, but I am also very enthusiastic about my work. So I believe that if you hire me, then you will see that I will exceed all your expectations.
When asked why you should be hired, this is an opportunity for you to craft an answer that covers three things. First, you want to convey that you will be able to deliver great results and meet the goals set before you. Secondly, you will be a great fit for the team. And finally, share what makes you stand out as a candidate. Lastly, Hallie, do you have any questions for me about this job, the company, or anything like that?
Well, I don't have any questions about the company or the job, but I am curious as to what kind of dog you have a photo of here on your desk.
Well, as you can see, that is quite a dog there.
That it is.
Kelly, do you have any questions for me about this position or anything relevant to the company?
Not only do I just really feel passionate about what I've already learned from you and through my own research, but I do not have any questions right now. If you don't mind handing me a business card, I will surely contact you at a further date if I have any.
Oh, sure, definitely. We can do that after our interview is over. Thank you. Thank you both, ladies.
Thank you.
When the interviewer asks you if you have any questions for them, always ask a couple questions. This is your opportunity to figure out if this job is the right one for you. Think about what you want to know about the position, what are the expectations, and anything else. You never want to convey that you do not have the time to ask any questions. Always come prepared. These are the do's and don'ts of answering interview questions. Remember, practice makes perfect, so be sure to prepare for your interview as soon as you get the call. In just a few minutes, an AU senior, Natalie Gonzalez, will be interviewing Professor Geese, a communication professor at AU, to discuss more tips for job interviews, so stay tuned.
Hi everyone and welcome back to this episode of Adulting. My name is Natalie Gonzalez and I'm here joined now by Professor Brianne Geese, who's part of the communications department here at Aurora University. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks, Natalie.
So we just wanted to ask you a few questions and tips that you would have for people who are, scheduling that first interview right out of college or anything like that. So the first question would be, what are some tips you would give to your own students when preparing for an interview?
So interviews are never easy, right? Because there's a lot of unknown. You don't know the person who's generally interviewing you, the company, and what your life after graduation is going to look like. So I usually tell students, or soon-to-be graduates in this case, to really take it a step at a time. Try to do your research and find out more about the company, what their missions are, how their employees are treated, and if you know anyone who currently works for the company or has in the past, to really take that in mind. For example, websites like Indeed will often allow people, as well as Glassdoor, to post stories about their experience. Usually it's after the company or after they've worked for them. But you have to also be mindful that generally people, when they go out of their way to post comments, are doing it for one of two reasons. Either they had a good experience or mostly they had a very poor experience. So I tell students, do your homework, find out what experiences employees have had, prior or current. Be mindful of that, but also make sure that they come with an open mind to the interview. So that way they don't let that taint their experience, but at least know what they could expect.
Awesome, very helpful. Thank you so much. What are some of the questions that you feel students are the most unprepared to answer when coming into an interview?
I find that the number one question that students are most uncomfortable with often has to deal with themselves. So that first question, tell me a little bit about yourself. Students feel a lot of anxiety or uncertainty, usually because they don't know where to start. And more than often, they find themselves talking a lot more than they really need to. So I usually find that the question, tell me a little bit about yourself, should be about 30 seconds to a minute, right? Remember, they've seen the resume, they'll have a chance to get to know you more through the other questions. But this question is really designed to frame the interview so that way they can get just a snippet of who you might be as far as an employee or a colleague. So I usually advise students to start small. Tell them a little bit about who you are. If you're, a graduate of AU, make sure to mention that. Your major, maybe some of the accomplishments or the projects that you've worked on while you were at AU, and really what you're excited about with this company. Remember, there's a lot of companies that you can interview with and a lot of lucky companies to have you. But what particularly about this opportunity, about this company, are you interested about maybe learning more?
Thank you. So obviously there's a bunch of different types of interviews. They're not always going to be in-person interviews right off the bat. And phone interviews are becoming very popular nowadays.
Yeah.
So how do phone interviews differ from in-person interviews?
Sure. So I completely agree. Phone interviews are becoming kind of like the new starting point. And oftentimes we find that companies are using this as a basis to filter or screen candidates. So think about it, right? You don't want 20 people coming to your office to an interview when you can just call them, have a 10-minute conversation, and then figure out if they should even be coming to the site. I usually tell students when thinking about phone interviews to be aware of the fact that these interviews are a lot more different, right? There's a lot of pressure because for example, you and I, the interview that we're having now, we can both read each other's nonverbal cues, the eye contact, the movement, the posture. And that really makes a difference when you're trying to read someone and understand if they're comfortable. But when we look at the phone interviews, you don't get that luxury. You don't see anyone, you're not getting the affirming nods or the eye contact. And that makes a lot of people nervous. I generally tell people when they're at an interview, at least on the phone, to first have a pen and paper so they can write down questions. So that way, as they're speaking, they can make sure that they're answering the questions. And then also, a lot of people get anxiety about talking too much. Sometimes that silence when you're on the phone because you can't see them or get that affirming nonverbal cues, they think that's a concern. If people are quiet, first of all, make sure the call didn't drop. But second, give them a moment. That way they can process. You've been speaking for a couple minutes. Give them time to digest as they would in person, and then allow them time to give feedback. So in addition to making sure you're answering the question and being okay with silence, I think those would be the best two aspects to prepare yourself when using an interview over the phone as a means to getting to know the candidate and the company.
What is the number one mistake students make in interviews?
I would have to say that a lot of students sell themselves short. A lot of times going into an interview, students assume that they don't have a lot of experience, right? They just came out of college, they haven't been at a firm or at a company for 5 to 10 years, and so because of that, they automatically kind of put themselves at the bottom. I encourage students to not think about that and to really think about the experiences that have put them in the position that they are to have the interview, right? Your resume means that you're able to put down that experience and chronicle it, but your resume is doing your job if you're sitting in the interview. So I really tell students and empower them to think about the experience that they've had in college, right? College is not easy. It's a long time term commitment. You're putting a lot of work, effort, and you're making a lot of sacrifices. So I tell students to really focus on that. It's no surprise to the interviewer and the company that you don't have a lot of experience in the real world yet. They know that. It's not a surprise. They see it on your resume. They'll know when you tell them a little bit about yourself. But what they do see and what they do notice is that you've been trained for however many years you've been in college and have made a commitment, fulfilled it, met it, and moved on successfully. So really focus on that. Don't let questions such as experience and not having professional experience bog you down. Don't make the mistake of underselling yourself, and really use it as an opportunity to show how your experience in a different format can really benefit the company.
Yeah, thank you. This is all very, very helpful. So with your academic and professional background and experience, I'm sure you've had your fair share of interviews, either
yes.
given or that you've done. Do you have any funny stories or interesting that have happened in an interview that you would like to share with us?
As far as interviews go, at least from my personal experience, they've been pretty straightforward. I do know that I interviewed in 2010 with a large, familiar technical firm company that makes things like iPhones. And their questions, along with other tech firms and tech industries like Google as well, they often like to ask questions that are very out there, right? So instead of asking questions like, tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell me about a time you've had to be a leader, you get questions like, how many elephants would it take to stack up upon one another in order to reach the top of the Empire State Building? And if you think about that, there's probably a specific answer that meets what they're looking for, but they certainly don't expect you to have it, right? So what they're really looking for with those kinds of questions is your cognitive ability to think analytically and problem solve. So instead of figuring out mathematically, the height of an elephant, how many you would need to stack to get to the height of whatever that might be of the Empire State Building, right, however many floors up, they really want to know how you start to think about that. So are you thinking about an elephant? Well, what kind of elephant? How many floors are the Empire State Building? What's the weather like? Are they going to be freestanding or on the building? So it's those kind of questions that they kind of have you think about. I think that was probably the most interesting interview that I've had myself. As far as giving interviews, candidates, they all have their own experiences that they like to share, and we all make our mistakes as far as, forgetting what day of the week it is and maybe what college we went to. I've had someone forget that as well. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting to know the candidate and really seeing if they're going to be a good fit.
Thank you. So then the last question, in your opinion, what do you think is the best period to allow for a follow-up interview, whether it be in person or on the phone, or if those differ? What are your suggestions on that to follow up after the interviews?
Yeah, following up is so important, and a lot of people aren't sure how to do it, so they don't do it at all. And I think it's really important just to follow up, not of a sense to let them know you really want the job, but simply for thanking them for their time, right? If you think about the interview, it takes a lot of scheduling. You're taking time out of their day to meet with you, a lot of coordination. So I would say definitely in a memorable way. So I'm not talking about showing up to the office or sending a thank you card in the mail, but I don't think a phone call would be memorable enough. You probably, while you're at the interview, want to get a business card for everyone that you've interacted with or had a chance to talk to. While you're getting that card, if there's something memorable, such as if they have a dog and you had a short conversation about that, or maybe they're an alum of the same school that you went to, on the back of that business card, just jot that down so you remember who they are. And I'd say not the same day, but perhaps the next day, the next work day. So if it's on a Friday, a Monday, or whatever the next business day might be, just shoot them an email thanking them for their time. That you appreciate the time they took to show you around the company, to get to know their company, and you look forward to hearing from them soon. You don't want to have an aggressive charge, but you do want to let them know that you're thankful for the time and that you are still interested.
Awesome. Thank you. This is all very helpful. I know me personally as a senior find this all very, very helpful. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to be here with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that's it for this Adulting episode. So join us next week on our next episode about financing. So